I knew what Dale Hansen is. Unfortunately.
I remember Dale Hansen countdown when I first came to the league.
So Jerry Jones and I and a couple other guys.
This has been a great year, Ted. Dale.
We love Dale. We love Dale.
Dale. He keeps you in touch with sports.
You're ready, jump right in. Dallas Dialogue with Dale.
Hola, shalom, and hey there, neighbor. Welcome to the latest episode of Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. I'm your host, Mark Villasana, and joining me as always is my BFF, Marketing Manager for Northwest Insurance, Miss Lila Levy. Shalom, Lila. How are you doing today?
Shalom, or hola in your language. How's it going?
Good. I appreciate that. Also joining me today is WFAA TV legend, Dallas's own Paul Harvey, and then we call Sensei around here, Mr. Dale Hansen. Hey there, Dale. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. One of these days, one of these months, I'm going to stop chuckling when you do that introduction. For some reason, that cracks me up every time. I used to be referred to as Paul Harvey, which I took as an incredible compliment back in the early 80s. When I first came to Dallas, I was going through a process that I was trying to change my delivery. And people used to call up and say, "Who do you think you are, Paul Harvey?" And I'm like, no, but I take that as a heck of a compliment.
Well, I meant it as a compliment. And we, speaking of comments, we got a lot of people saying exactly that same thing, that you remind me of Paul Harvey. So I thought we'd go with the stuff. Now tell me, it's been a month since we last got together. Anything in the news grab your attention or anything?
Oh, you
I imagine there might be something. Why don't you tell me about it?
We spent an hour last month talking about the immigration issues and the immigration problem in America.
Right.
And I don't understand how none of us came up with the concept of charging $1 million and giving him a gold card. If only I had thought to myself, how about this? You give me $1 million, I'll let you come to America. And somehow, Lila, Mark, even you guys didn't come up with this brilliant plan to simply charge $1 million.
Way to go, Mark.
I'm a capitalist, true and true, but even I didn't come up with that one. But yeah, it's nuts. I mean,
it's stupid.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing that was stupid. The one thing on a serious note that just bothered the heck out of me. We had the one shooting in D.C. by the Afghan refugee who kills the National Guard member. And let me say again, the obligatory, oh my goodness, what a heinous crime it was. But one Afghan refugee shoots a member of the National Guard, and we as a country, led by our esteemed executive, decided that we're going to ban immigration from like 19 different countries.
Right.
Call after call after call to re-vet all the Afghan refugees who came to this country after helping us during the Afghan war. We want to re-vet them all. We have to just double check all of them. And yet, when a white guy kills 59 people in Vegas, shooting from his hotel room, nothing was done. When a white guy shot up a black church in Charleston, nothing was done. When a white guy blew up a federal building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, nothing was done. Nobody said, we need to start checking out these white guys who served in the Army and have flat tops like Timothy McVeigh did.
Right.
We need to check these people out. We need to consider taking some kind. Nothing.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely offensive to me. But it is the thing that I like most about this particular podcast. We have been talking about the issues that America is talking about.
Exactly, yeah.
And another thing that just jumped out at me, the social media argument that we had a couple of months ago about all the impacts in the future because of the social media, which I still think is going to ruin this country. Australia has decided to ban social media for teenagers, because Australia has political leaders with a backbone. And even if you disagree with their decision, they are at least willing to make tough decisions, trying to fix a major problem. And we don't have those people in America. We don't have them in D.C. for sure.
We for sure do not have them here. And I think they did something similar with the guns. We talked about that a month ago.
We talked about the guns.
Yeah, and the results are there in Australia. So I'm interested to see what happens with the social media ban.
It is interesting because I hate to think that that a 15-year-old kid can't. I don't even know how to find TikTok and all that. I don't do it. I don't want to know how to do it. But I hate to think that we would be a country where a 15-year-old kid can't do something stupid on TikTok.
Yeah.
But then you also see all the negative impacts of what TikTok is doing to the undeveloped brain of teenagers, maybe drastic action is required. We were talking about this because that was another one we did about guns a while back. In '94, they were having a lot of mass shootings in Australia. So they basically banned the guns. I mean, you can still hunt in Australia, but it's really hard to get a gun just for the hell of it in Australia. One mass shooting in 32 years.
Wow.
One mass shooting in Australia in 32 years. We have one like every 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you would also think, it comes to mind like, okay, our leaders, they keep on not doing anything about it. You know why? Because big money talks. NRAs writing checks, etc. But don't you also think in all these other countries where they are doing something about it, people are wanting to write big checks, but the lawmakers are saying, no, not interested. So it's possible to say no.
It was an argument I used to have with the great John McKay, who was the anchor at WFAA with me for 20 plus years. And I did a gun control commentary, which, as you might expect, got a tremendous negative blowback. And John McKay looked at me and said, well, there's just really nothing we can do here in America.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they do it in Canada. We don't have mass shootings in Canada. We don't have mass shootings in England, another place tough to get a gun.
Yeah.
We don't have mass shootings in Australia. We don't have mass shootings in Japan. Because America is the only country with mental health issues? America is the only country where people are just upset so drastically about their financial situation in life that they decide to grab a gun and reach out and shoot up a church, for goodness sakes. We are the only country where people are affected by that. And I love John McKay to death. And John just looked at me and said, well, yeah, America's different. There's just nothing we can do.
Well, John probably should have listened to our podcast. I think we solved that issue. Whatever says you're going to do.
I have to say one other thing very quickly, though.
Sure.
The reaction we got, I love the emails that you forward to me. Because here's the thing, how I deal with this, and I don't know how you guys were handling some of the negative reaction, because it never bothers me. I don't know that she actually said it, but it is a quote attributed to her. The great actress from years ago, Katharine Hepburn.
Yes.
At least they attribute it to her, and it's one I believe in seriously, is I really don't care what you say about me, as long as it's not the truth. And when the guy wrote in, and I just laughed. I swear to you, I laughed like crazy. The guy calls me the dumbass.
Right.
And he says, shut up, Dale Hansen. You're just a dumbass.
Yeah.
And he can't spell
Misspelled it. Misspelled. I forwarded that to
He
you.
misspelled dumbass. Now, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If I was going to call you a dumbass, I would at least make sure I spelled it correctly.
Do a little spell
and I
check.
just laugh.
Yeah.
And my wife was sitting there, and I swear to you, she walks by, and I think I said this to you, Lila. She walks by, and she goes, oh, you're just loving this, aren't you? And I said, yeah, matter of fact, I am. And then she even says again, because it's been a few years, she goes, why doesn't it bother you? I mean, the fact that people are making some of these outrageous comments, and I've had a lot of threats and the like over the years, not from this podcast yet. But certainly when I was at WFAA, I would get all kinds of threats and nonsense. And as I always tell her, and I said to the lovely Mrs. Hansen again, I'm like Kate Hepburn. I really don't care what you say about me, as long as it's not the truth.
Exactly.
And when you scrape that bone, I reckon.
Yeah.
Oh, now I got to slide off a little bit. So
Mark and I discussed, because we've had with that particular podcast from December, Mark and I were like, oh my God, look at all the negative comments. And we even said, Dale's going to love these.
Yeah.
You did, I knew it. But it is part of the deal. When I wrote the commentary years ago, it was actually in 2014. So I was like 63 years old at that time. When I actually wrote 64 years old, when I wrote the commentary about Michael Sam, the gay football player from the University of Missouri. And the initial reaction was incredibly positive. Right. And then Pete Delkus, the weather guy at the time, asked me how the reaction was. And I made the mistake of saying, well, it's been unbelievable. I've got like 1,500 emails, and they're all very positive. Oh, here they come. The rocks are starting to move now because they're crawling out. And my next 1,500 were just vicious. Yeah. I mean, just absolutely vicious. But I believe this in my heart. and it's the same thing I say for this podcast. As I said on the day I retired, any podcast, any commentary worth reading or listening to is going to offend somebody. Any good commentary will offend somebody.
Right.
When you write a commentary where everybody just kind of rolls their eyes and go, yeah, well, okay, fine. Nah, that's a waste of time. I never, as we've talked about on this podcast before, I never say anything, one, that I don't believe, and two, I never say anything just for the shock value. I really don't. Sometimes people think I do, but I promise you I don't. I write only what I believe. But I also know full well that when I write it, a lot of people are going to get upset.
Right.
At least I hope they do. Because if I don't have that divide, if I haven't moved people to a reaction, then in my opinion, I have failed. And I really do believe that any good commentary will upset a good number of people. I don't think this one will.
Hope not.
Because despite all of that stuff we've been talking about, I think it's time to lighten the mood just a little bit.
Let's do it. Tell me what you have for us today.
Well, you wrote this the other day and go something like this. Mark did suggest the other day an episode topic asking if Dallas had lost its identity because of all the transplants who have moved here. I'm one of those transplants, moving here in the summer of 1980, 45 years ago, which almost makes me a native. But I don't think you can lose something you never had. Fort Worth has a unique identity. Austin definitely does. San Antonio has the Alamo. New York City had Broadway. There's the Windy City of Chicago, the Mile High City of Denver, and the people in Aspen are even higher. The Hollywood glamour of Los Angeles, the hippies and crooked streets of San Francisco, but a Dallas identity would be exactly what? Most people in America, when they think of Dallas, think of Cowboys, the football kind. But I don't think much about them for the past 30 years or so. A lot of people, including my own sister in Iowa, think those of us in Dallas wear cowboy hats, blue jeans and boots, and ride a horse to work. But that's not Dallas. That would be Weatherford. Dallas is the city where presidents go to die. A stain on this great city that city leaders tried to ignore for too long. We have a JFK memorial now. The school book depository building is still there. And there's an X on Elm Street to mark the spot where John Kennedy was shot. The curious stand on the corner spreading their conspiracy theories about the grassy knoll that has intrigued the world for more than 60 years now. If that is an identity we had, it's an identity we don't want. I love Dallas. I love everything about it. The very first day I set foot in the city, I knew that I would eventually die here. I didn't understand why downtown Dallas looked like a ghost town after 7, but it's getting a little better. Not much, but a little. I don't mind the heat. We have air conditioning for that. And I love the fact we get a little snow and ice 3 to 4 days a year, and then it's gone. But Dallas has never been just Dallas to me. Dallas is Irving and DeSoto, Grand Prairie, Grapevine and South Lake, Rockwall and Mesquite, Plano and Colleyville, and we cannot forget the fabulous Waxahachie, the home of the lovely Mrs. Hanson and her 22 animals. The dozens of cities that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the great city they surround. Because the reality is most of us make our money in Dallas, then spend it to drive 40 minutes to get home. My dad used to get so mad at me. He always said he was incredibly tired of listening to me complain for 17 years about living in a small farm town in Iowa, wanting to move to the big city, and then when I did, spent too much money moving back to the country. But I have always known this was the place I wanted to live and the place where I would die. I called my wife to be on that hot summer day in 1980, asking her if she wanted to die in Texas because I knew I would. And while our politicians in Austin continued to embarrass me on the national stage, I've never had a second thought about that. We had opportunities to leave, but we never did. And I've never had a second thought about that either. This great American city might not have the identity that so many other American cities do, but I've always liked the bumper sticker I've seen on so many Texas cars. I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could, like so many other transplants are trying to do now. Dallas is where we chose to live. Texas is where we choose to die. And I'm hoping sometime around 2043.
Well,
Which I realized I did some bad math. I'm not going to make it to 20.
Wow, I was like,
but
man,
it's a dream.
I
It's a
don't
hope.
remember signing that long of a contract with you, Dale. But well, surprise, Dale, you're not going to believe this. I totally agree with you. I'm a native Dallasite here, born and raised here, went to high school here, went to college here at SMU. You might know a little something about that school.
Yeah, a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I have in my own mind what my perception of Dallas is, but in talking to people that did not come from Dallas, when I talk to them, the only thing they really bring up is the JFK assassination, which you met, and the Dallas Cowboys, which we're all familiar with. What say you, Lila? What's your experience been with other people that aren't from Dallas?
Well, so I'm not officially from Dallas. I was born in Waco, and I moved here when I was 9 with my family. And so living in Waco up until I was 9, which is a very young age and very impressionable, Dallas was the big city, and it was a whole hour and a half away, which might as well have been 5 hours away. But when I moved to Dallas, I was very shocked by Dallas, but I take to Dallas well. I think you're absolutely right. People look at Dallas. One other thing I throw in there is that, yes, people think about JFK, of course, that stain, Dallas Cowboys, and also the show Dallas, and that we all live in mansion.
I used to hear that all the time, that we were all J.R. Ewing.
Right.
But I think that's pretty much gone. I mean, South Lake was a major attraction, but I don't hear anybody. I'm serious about this. When I first moved here in 1980, that's all I heard about for the next 10, 15 years.
Because Dallas was such a big show on
TV. It was a huge show.
Every Friday night, that's what you want.
Why am I not surprised that it was driven by the fact that somebody got shot?
I mean, you're going backwards, Dale. You're going backwards. That was last month's subject. Well, I'm going to push back a little bit on that, Dale, because as you know, Lila and I host another podcast, which you came on, and that's how we ended up here. And one of the questions we would always ask our guests is, if you had to name one person who defines Dallas, who would that person be? You'd be surprised what our number one answer was.
J.R. Ewing?
J.R. Ewing. To this day, J.R. Ewing.
Yeah.
Now we skewed about 60 years old plus on our guys. It still was. And if it wasn't J.R., the other answer was the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what people identify Dallas with. I kind of looked up some other things that Dallas might be known for, which is the oil, the wealth, the diversity, the migration. I think what Dallas falls into, it's not a city, it's more of a destination city. So I think you have people coming in from the outside.
It was for me.
Yeah, exactly. You have people coming from the outside. You have people who bring their own ways and ways. There's nothing centralized about Dallas that we all recognize. At least I can't think of. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to try something different. We're going to get a different perspective, something new. But it'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. You've been watching and you're listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. But I have a question for you. What's going to happen if an accident happens at your home? Maybe a fire or a flood or even a burglary. Well, with Northwest Insurance Agency, all of those thoughts can just stay thoughts. Because when you're covered under the sombrero, you're covered for any accident imaginable. So give us a call today or visit us at nwagencies.com and let us give you the peace of mind you deserve.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen and Lila and Dale. When we left, I mentioned that we're going to be trying something different, and what that different thing is I know Lila and I tend to agree with you a lot of issues, Dale, so we thought it'd be interesting if we brought in a different perspective. So what we're going to do this time, we're going to bring a new voice in and hear what she has to say about the particular subject. But first, let me give her a quick introduction. Very honored to have this guest here today. Today's guest is a true Dallas media powerhouse. Candy Evans is the founder and publisher of CandiesDirt.com, the award-winning real estate news site known as the insider source for North Texas real estate. A Columbia-trained journalist, Candy earned her Texas real estate license not to sell homes, but to report on them. One of the stories she broke was the fact that George W. Bush was moving to Dallas. She's also built a national following along the way. Her sharp voice, deep industry insight, and unmatched connections have made CandiesDirt.com one of the most respected real estate platforms in the country. She's also a contributor to outlets like Forbes magazine and serves on the board of Braemar Hotels and Resorts. Candy lives right here in Dallas with her husband, Dr. Walter Evans. So guys, please help me in welcoming Candy Evans. Hello, Candy. How are you doing?
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Wow.
You have to understand, Candy, that when Mark says you're going to give you a brief, quick introduction, it reminds you as to why you want him to speak the eulogy at your funeral.
Well, there's a reason Lila and our friends, we tend to talk. But listen, thank you so much for being here. And with that being said, I'm going to let Dale take it over.
Yeah. Here's the thing I'm asking you first, and we'll get into it because I think I know where you're going for the most part. But do you think Dallas has an identity?
Oh, absolutely.
And it is what?
Real estate.
Real estate.
It is real estate. It is dirt, which is Candy's dirt, which is kind of morphing back to Dallas dirt, which is what I started, when I was at D Magazine. And I'll tell you, it is the first thing I noticed about Dallas. I'm a transplant from, I'm from Chicago, but I went via New York, and my husband wanted to do his residency. And so we're talking, and he's saying, well, I'm applying here, here, and here, but I really want to go to Dallas. I go, why the heck do you want to go to Dallas? That's where Kennedy was shot, right? And so he says, well, it's the best OB-GYN training program in the country. I said, really? He says, yeah, that's where all the books are written about delivering babies. And so I didn't know this. I was a young student and journalist in New York. And so we came to Dallas, for better, for worse, to camp. And I fell in love with it.
But this is what I've also been intrigued by. I mean, there is some great medical facilities.
Oh, fabulous. Yes.
But people don't think about that the way they do about Houston,
right?
The way they do Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And yet there's some of the best work
absolutely
being done. But when you mention real estate, isn't that though more a case of where I would all say it's not really Dallas, it's Highland Park.
No, it's
when
Dallas.
People think about Dallas real estate, don't they think of mansions?
They do.
And that's Highland Park.
That is, no. It's way far north now. It's changed.
Now, yeah.
Exactly. The first thing that I noticed that really drew me into Dallas was the real estate. I drove around the neighborhoods of North Dallas, by the way. Of course, Highland Park, too. And some of the hilly areas in Preston Hollow. And I said, this is beautiful. And they're green. By the way, if you want a great job in Dallas, become a landscaper. Just the money, just keep.
Yeah, we got rid of all our landscapers. Oh, we're doing everything we can to get our landscapers out.
The landscaping is beautiful, and people keep up their homes. They're proud of it. And I just was besmitten with the real estate. And I said, I love it here, and we're going to buy a house. And of course, my husband's like, a house? Like, that's for grown-ups, But anyhow, now we're into our fourth house. I think I've lost count. And I love Dallas. I love the real estate. And I will say there's three things people talk about. It's cocktail parties in Dallas: football, oil, and real estate.
Before I let Mark and Lila jump back in, I got to follow up just one other thing on this. Here's what really intrigued me the most when you talk about real estate. Is there any other city in America that spends millions of dollars for a house to tear it down so they can build another one like we do here?
Yes, but not many.
But not like we do here.
And that's because the land was cheap. By the way, that's changing. That is changing. The new thing now is remodeling. We just bought a home that's 25 years old, and we remodeled it because the land costs are up. The reason that happened, Dale, so much before, like 10 years ago, was because of the land costs were cheaper. But you go into when your land costs are higher, then you're paying more for it. So you cannot afford to tear it down as much. You've got to go in there and remodel it. So that's changing. We're kind of on the cusp of that.
Well, I'll tell you, you talk about real estate, and I think it's one of the reasons Dallas does not have an identity, because the real estate's so spread out. There's not a centralized Dallas area that Dale mentioned, other than Highland Park, that when you think of real estate, you think of Dallas, you think of Frisco, you think of McKinney, all these different suburbs.
Southlake,
all these suburbs that are growing. So I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's why Dallas lacks an identity, because again, it's not one centralized area where everybody has, I'm thinking, there's different sectors. It's kind of like social media these days. We all get our information. We all live in different realities. And I feel like Dallas is like that. Each little city has their own little reality. So there's not really one centralized reality for the city of Dallas. What do you think, Lila?
That's an interesting point. I would I would agree with that. That's a really interesting point. I've never thought of it that way. There is one thing that I go back to, and real estate feeds into this. When I think of Dallas, and besides JFK and besides the Dallas Cowboys, I think of the commerce here and how everyone wants to move their headquarters here. American Airlines back in the mid 80s, Southwest Airlines started here, AT&T, Toyota moved here, and that always drives me in my head that people are not going, oh, I have the week off for spring break, I'm going to bring my family to Dallas. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to go out of the country, or they're going to go to New York, but they'll say, oh, my husband has a meeting in Dallas. And so I think about that. It's not a destination city for that. But again, commerce, all of the companies that are here that feed into real estate.
Oh, yeah.
They go that all goes hand in hand.
They come here because they see, or they think, they perceive that the real estate is cheaper. You can have a mansion here for almost nothing. I remember being in New York at the Yale Club where the doorman pulled me aside and said, I want to find a house in Dallas. I hear you can move there and get a mansion for nothing. I mean, this was the perception that, a doorman in a hotel in New York had. It was funny, you're talking about the companies relocating. The other two things that have really were brilliant and have helped the city so much is DFW Airport. God bless whoever those leaders were who put that together. That was a beautiful deal that helped this region, and the Dallas North Tollway.
Well,
we wouldn't have Frisco if it weren't for the Dallas North Tollway.
This is the thing you just touched on. I was involved when Toyota made the move, for example, because people wanted to come from California for the most part, and so they got a lot of us at Channel 8 to talk about the different aspects of what these imports or people making the move could expect. But that's another point you just make, though, that I find fascinating. I had a friend of mine built a house, and he hadn't finished the house and made about a 70% profit because somebody from California came in, saw it, and realized how much you want for that house, and he said, fine, I'll sell it. I was in San Francisco with the lovely Mrs. Hanson's cousin, and this is back in the 80s. And their house was over $1 million, and I promise you, I wouldn't live there.
Right. Yeah.
I would not live there. When I went to L.A. for a job interview in 1982, I wasn't going, but I knew the guy that wanted to hire me, so I said, I'll take your free trip.
Right.
I knew a woman who used to manage the Comedy Corner in Dallas, and she's now managing a comedy club in L.A. So she took me around. They were going to triple my salary. So I thought, for that, I might have to move. So I went to find out what kind of a house I could buy for this triple salary that I was going to make. I wouldn't live there. I mean, I promise you, I would not live there. So I thought at that time, it's so much money. I know what I'll do. I'll just commute for a few years, make all this money, get a nice apartment. I'll have the Hugh Hefner style, the coolest apartment ever. We walked down this hall, and this is like 1982, and the apartment was like $1,700 a month, which I'm paying like $340 in Dallas at that time for an apartment. And there was graffiti on the walls. The carpeting was a little bit torn up. They opened up the apartment door, and the ceiling was 9 foot high. I mean, it felt like as I'm walking around, I'm going to bump my head. Yeah. And is that changing, though? I mean, you mentioned the price, and are we still leading price-wise for people who come here? Are they still excited about what? That's why I moved to Waxahachie. Right. I could get more land and more house for considerably less than I could have gotten in Frisco and South Lake and Grapevine and everything else, which is why I live in Waxahachie. Is it still the same here?
It's changing now. By the way, I have to ask you, did you ever sell your ranch? Because I was going to write about your ranch a couple of years ago.
It took me 3 years to sell it.
I wish I would. Maybe we did write about it. I can't remember. But I was like, oh, this is fabulous. This is Dale Hanson's ranch. We got to write about it. We got to pump this up. Maybe we did. I don't know. But you did sell it because I remember it was gorgeous. I was gawking it the whole time.
Well, we did. I don't want to be too incredibly arrogant here, but I guess I will be. But we, shall we say, overbuilt.
Yeah.
For the neighborhood. Yeah. When we built this house, everybody in town said, what the hell are you thinking? Yeah. And we had a house on the south side of Lake Waxahachie with 60 acres, and we were the only house there.
Wow.
And there wasn't a house in Waxahachie that was close to what we had paid for this 60-acre ranch. When we left, there were 74, 75 homes on the south side of the lake. And this is what it was. This is amazing to me. A man from Dallas bought it. The guy I sold it to sold it like 4 years later. A guy from Dallas bought it and tore it down.
Wow.
Tore the whole thing down, leveled the entire house because he wanted more of a one level. This was a 2-level upstairs, whatever. And I'm thinking back to what you said earlier. Well, couldn't you just remodel? I mean, I had a log interior and big beams and just leveled it. And I'm thinking, that is God's way of telling you you've got way too much money.
Yeah.
Was that the house where you always had your parties too?
Yeah.
That was that house.
And it had a resort style pool. He kept the pool in the back. Tore out all the landscaping.
Wow.
Landscaping was quite a few dollars. Tore it all out. And then takes this house. I'll just say, just for the sake of this argument, the house itself was over $1 million. Mm-hmm. Just the structure of the house was over $1 million. Now, by the way, that was $1 million in 1999. And took that house with the tile floors, the wood, the stone fireplaces, everything, and just dropped it to the dirt.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
Did you take offense to that deal?
Well, the lovely Mrs. Hanson did at first, and then I thought, no, we sold that place.
Yeah.
It did, as I said, it took us 3 years because it was just out of the market. But then the market eventually caught up with us, and then a guy came in and bought it, and I was in a panic, so I sold it for too little, quite honestly. But still, I needed to get out because I knew I was retiring, and I couldn't maintain it for the long-term retirement future. But yeah, I did. I just thought Chris was really upset when she first saw it. Because the memories.
Yeah.
Homes. I don't care where you live. Homes.
Oh my God, they are so much. They're more than brick and they're more than stone.
It's not mortar and brick.
It's not. It is, and we just sold our home November. Well, we were out. We moved on November 15th. We sold it late October, and I'm in trauma over this. It's a traumatic thing because we built it. I picked everything out. Yep. I know every corner of it. I even used to wander in the attic sometimes and kind of look at all the beams and everything. I remember this. I remember that. This is doing that. I knew that house so well. And so we sold it because my husband wants to eventually retire, and we had an acre and a lot of overhead. It was 6,800 square feet. And there's just the two of us, so we didn't need it. But it is still breaking my heart.
Let me talk.
Gorgeous house. I've been in your house.
We had 100 people there for USA Film Festival
parties. That's how Candy and I know each
more
other.
Parties there.
Oh my God! It was whenever we got the invites that said, "Oh," and after the film party at the Evans house, I was like, "Oh, a good." Plus, I would play with your dogs. So
now we're squeezing. I know you guys are going to give me grief, but we're squeezing into 5,000 square feet.
How do you do it, Candy? How do you do it?
It's horrible.
Yeah. I had this lady over to help me organize the kitchen, and she said, "Why do you have so many plastic forks and stuff and all that?" She said, "You've got enough for an army." I said, "Well, we entertained a lot.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people here, and they'd leave a few forks."
Well, here's
you probably did it at your place too.
Well, this is based on one of those emails that the guy was making all the smart remarks about. When I sold my place, because I was very proud of it, because we built it from the ground up. It was an undeveloped piece of land. We see the land. My wife just starts crying because we've been looking for a long time, and tears are just flowing. She said, "Baby, baby, baby, you got to buy this for me, baby. You got to buy this for me." And I said, "Well, I'm going to buy it for you, hon." But I said, "Those teardrops are costing me about $1,800 an acre."
Don't show the realtor.
Which they did.
Yeah.
So when we sold it, everybody said, "Oh, why would you sell that place? It's your dream home. It was the greatest backyard party place ever."
Yeah.
Fabulous place that we just love to death. Her horses are buried out on the corner of the pasture overlooking the lake underneath a tree. And it was a hard thing. So we moved into this house, which is I think it's 5,100 square feet. It's 40 acres because the house that we had was 60 acres. The house itself was like 6,000 square feet. And we moved into this house for like 5,100 square feet and 40 acres. And my producer at the time, Sean Hamilton, said, I thought you said you had to downsize because of your pending retirement.
Right.
And I said, well, you have to understand, in my world, this is downsizing. But I want to follow up when Lila was asking about the commerce of this city and all these companies moving. What is it they're asking about? Obviously, I would guess, where am I going to live? Is that like the first question? Or what is it people ask about when they come to Dallas?
Well, they want quality of life. That's the number one thing. A quality of life is your homes, obviously your schools, your education, availabilities here, your safety. That's why I'm very big on crime. We got to keep crime down because people don't like to live in places where they're going to get held up all the time. I think those are the three biggest things. Quality of life is definitely here in Dallas. We have, our climate is milder than some of these other crazy places. Although, what was the company that chose Chicago over us? Was that Boeing? Which I
think it was boring.
Yeah, it was like, you're crazy. But, I love Chicago. It's my hometown, but,
And you mentioned one other, or at least I think you did, because you're at the far end of the table and I don't hear very well. But didn't you mention the airport?
Oh, exactly.
That was absolutely one of the things that made me
whoever
say,
did that, we worship.
We can pretty much go nonstop, which is always important to me. I hate that flying to Phoenix and stopping on the way over. But we can go almost anywhere we want. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, we can do it, for the most part, in like 2.5 hours.
Right.
But if I lived in Chicago and I wanted to go to Mexico, if I lived in California and I wanted to go to New York like you do all the time, if I lived in New York, want to go to California, Dallas and the DFW airport, and just what you said, the leadership vision of creating DFW airport, that's probably at the top of my list.
Absolutely, 100%. And that is why I do think Dallas has an identity. We may be a mixture or a blend of everything. We're a blend of North Texas. We're really I think Wick Allison used to hate using the word metroplex because that's not a real word. But it is a word because we are a metroplex. We are Arlington and we are, Frisco and we are, east to Lake Ray Hubbard and, west to all that.
Grapevine
Lake. And then, of course, the Mid-Cities area. And I've been going... This is crazy. I take my dogs. I drive an hour and 20 minutes to take them to camp when we go out of town because they love it there. And I get to see this tollway that is like, I go up to the end of it and then I head north to Sadler, which is somewhere near Sherman up there. Okay. But there's the tollway, but they're finishing it. And I look and I go, every time I take a drive up there, there's another development.
The only thing I think about constantly, one, I do think we're going to choke ourselves on traffic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is going to be a great little town when we get it finished someday. I mean, if we ever get it finished.
Someday.
I mean, the company that make those orange cones, I mean, they got to be making $1 gazillion.
The thoughts of Mr. Dale Hansen.
The concrete people are doing well, too.
Let's take a quick break here, Candy. And when we come back, I want to ask you, because we have so many transplants, I want to know what their initial thoughts are, what they're getting into in Dallas. So let's take a quick break. You've been listening and watching to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Whether you're racing to work or just enjoying a cruise on a Sunday afternoon, we can do that. It does not matter if it's a beat-up clunker of a daily driver or a supercar that you love with all your heart, we cover it. Perhaps you need business insurance to get on a job site or just want that safety net for your employees. We have that also. Don't forget about your most important asset of them all, your home. What I'm trying to say is that at Northwest Insurance Agency, we do it all.
Northwest Insurance. Get covered under the umbrella.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. And guys, when we left, we were talking to Candy Evans. And Candy, I asked you before we left, you deal with a lot of people who transplant here into Dallas. When they approach you about coming to Dallas, what is their initial perception of what Dallas is?
Well, they definitely they still think of Dallas, the old series
there you go, Dale.
We thought about. A few of the younger ones don't quite go there, but they still think of there's a little bit of glitz here. I've heard some people say that Dallas has all the good glitz of LA without the bad stuff. So they feel like there's an LA kind of elegance here, but then it's kind of mingled with the cowboy influence, which is kind of why I say we're just this hybrid, this blend. Of
You mean the Cowboys influenced the football Cowboys?
Like cowboy gear and the Western wear and things like that. The whole Western thing. I think that's what they're asking for. They are very interested in the schools. And I'll tell you something that surprises me is a lot of them are interested in the private schools. They almost come here for the private schools because we have some really wonderful private schools, and we have some schools for children with learning issues, which every kid has learning issues. It's not a special thing, but there's Shelton, there's Winston, there's Hockaday, there's St. Mark's, there's ESD, which is I've seen these schools just grow mammothly. And I do agree our educational, certainly I think DISD has done so much, but it does need to, we need to really improve on our education, because if you want to keep those companies coming here, they want kids educated. They want people educated graduating from these schools so they can hire them.
Right.
They don't want a vacuum. And so I think that's one thing that they're looking for. I do know we just sold our house. And I tell you, I have so much to write about because the process was eye-opening for me. Here I've been writing about it, for 15 years. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done this in 30 years. And now we were selling our house. And this one couple came in and they were from California, coincidentally from Portola Valley, where my son lives. So of course I hear this in a conversation. I'm supposed to be quiet, right? Even though I'm an agent, I'm supposed to be real quiet. Finally, they said, you have to leave. And I'm like, I'm going to leave. You got to get out of your house to show it because you've got too much personality. You're overshowing the house. You're overwhelming the sales process. So I was listening at my desk, and they said, California, I go, oh, they're coming here with money. They've got 2 kids, and the wife loved the trees. We had trees, and she was very disappointed that most of the homes that she looked at did not have a lot of trees. And so she said to her husband, well, I like this house because of the trees. It reminds me of home, because we're coming from an area with trees.
The problem that we have with the trees, and I argued this like crazy, they did the same thing at Trophy Club where I lived for a long time. Whenever they build a house, they tear down all the trees.
Oh, it's sinful.
Well, in Waxahachie, a guy named Bobby Glass decided to develop the south side of Lake Waxahachie. So I was there. I was the only house on the entire south side of the lake. Bobby decides to develop the entire south side, which now has, like I said, 75, 80 homes. When I would go out my back door, I'd look to the south, and it was solid forest, just like we're looking out this window. It was just solid trees. And they cut them all down.
Oh.
I was unbelievably mad about this.
Wow.
And I went over and I started talking to a couple of the builders, and they said, you don't know what it would cost if we had to build around the trees. Now, I was just over there just a couple of months ago, and most of the people there have spent the money to landscape it. Mm-hmm. And I think in another 10 years or so, it'll be fabulous. Now, I would argue that it's really good. Mm-hmm. But for the first 10, 12 years of that development, beautiful homes. But, the bushes are a foot high. Yeah. The tree in the front yard is 4 feet high. But I've had almost every developer and every builder I talked to said, you just can't build a house in a wooded lot.
It's hard.
Because it'll just drive the cost up for some reason like crazy.
It's so funny. When back in the day when we were both at Channel 4, I remember doing a story up north with, who was a developer up there. And I looked around. I was fresh from Chicago, and I said, can I just ask you what you did with all the trees? And he looked at me and he said, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from Chicago in the Northeast, And he said, honey, these were cotton field. There were no trees.
Which is what attracted us to Waxahachie.
Yeah.
Because I've got trees all over our place, as you guys know. Yeah. My house is surrounded by trees. The pasture is framed in trees. And I still think trees are incredible. But it's also what you said too, Candy. Kind of just want to drive this point home. 2 things. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the commerce of this town, and I just saw an article recently. Are you aware that there's like some exchange, like a Wall Street type?
Yelp Street. Oh,
it's like coming to Dallas.
Yeah. Dallas, correct.
And I do hear that a lot, that people think that Dallas is whether it's oil-driven or just commerce-driven, that it's a really expensive, high-powered, rich people, the Bum Brights of the world, the Ross Perot's of the world. But the key thing for me, and I'm thinking, I really do think most people realize this. You live in this suburb area, and the comfortability word that you used. I always tell people I moved south because of the price and trees. But what I love about this area is that within this 50-mile radius, I've got my choice of some of the best restaurants in the country.
Right.
I've got the entertainment coming. I mean, almost every major. I've seen Springsteen. I've seen Rod Stewart. I saw Nate Bargatze. I mean, all the great shows come through Dallas. We've got all the major sports. And when there is something that I just can't find in Dallas, which in my life is very, very little, I go to that fantastic DFW airport, and within 2.5 hours, I'm there.
I know.
That's why, I think this is the most incredible place in the country. I just do.
I love Dallas. But I think when we talk about lack of identification, then I always go back to the fact that there's no really defining architecture here. We have the Golden Gate Bridge of San Francisco, Empire State Building in New York. We have nothing like that in Dallas that people from outside the city go, oh my God, that's Dallas right there.
We had that horse up on a building for a while. There's our landmark.
Going back to the Cowboys influence here, I think at one point our landmark might have been Texas Stadium. The hole in the
hole in the roof of the Texas Stadium.
Do you find that same thing to be true?
Well, I won't get into I Am Pay because that'll be a whole nother show.
Okay.
But I do think that there is a mid-century modern ranch vibe here that is beautiful and that is kind of coming back now, especially the baby boomers who are retiring and they don't want two-story homes. They're finding these ranches again that were built in the 60s. We had one for, I think, our second house or third house. I kind of lost count of houses, sorry. But it was a beautiful ranch and that kind of spread out, everything's on one floor. And I think that to me, that's a real Texas defined, Dallas home. The Dallas ranch is kind of sprawling like that, with the kind of the 3-4 bedrooms and the family room and the game room to the back. That you see these a lot off of north of Walnut Hill Lane, south of Royal, in that area. I think that we also embrace, there's the Santa Barbara homes. I love it when you write about a home, it's described, this is the Santa Barbara style. Well, what's a Santa Barbara style? Well, it's usually a smooth finish, a smooth stucco or smooth stone finish home with, big ceilings and big, huge windows, lots of arches. And then, of course, there was that horrible, that Mediterranean period that we were going through. Oh, my God.
I have a Mediterranean home, Candy. I was kidding.
I'm so sorry. Well, they're kind of a liability. There was one down the street from me that took a year to sell because it was so heavily.
But is that good or bad that we don't have the style?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think Mark, what do you think is good or bad?
Well, I think it's just indicative of what Dallas is, So just a bunch of little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I think that's why, and the subject today is, what is Dallas identification? And I think in reality, to me, there's a lack thereof. I mean, not to say Dallas is not a great city. We don't have everything all the major cities have, but there's not one thing that ties it all together for the outsider. And I think that's why we lack identity.
I would agree with that. There are lots of, you used the word melting pot.
You were total melting pot.
And because we all know I love New York. New York's a melting pot, but I think that's a good term. Dallas is a different kind of melting pot than New York. I'm going to bring up something also that really has not been mentioned, and it's the quality of restaurants here in Dallas, because the quality of restaurants has really amped up in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yes.
I used to sell advertising for the Dallas Observer, and I was there from 1999 to about 2002. And 30% of the restaurants we called on, 30% of our ad list had to be restaurants. So 30% of our ads that we were booking every single week had to be restaurants. And I cannot remember the number of restaurants in Dallas. I remember knowing the number, but the number has definitely increased. And there are so many restaurants, and the client we were going after were the small mom and pop Asian restaurants, Mexican restaurants, etc. Not Chili's. Right. Chili's is not going to even though Brinker is based here. Chili's is not going to advertise in the Observer. Right. But what I've seen is a spike up in the type of cuisine that you find in New York and LA and Boston. And what I mean by that is the varied cuisine. You can go find an Ethiopian restaurant. You can go find a Polynesian restaurant. You can go find a German restaurant. And 15, 20 years ago, you couldn't.
No.
And so I think that's another piece that adds to the personality of Dallas. But I tell you, the hill I'm going to die on with Dallas is that it's a city of commerce. It's not where you come for a vacation, but it's commerce, it's education, it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And it's real estate.
And it's real estate.
It's real estate. I will tell you, when we moved here in 1980, I will tell you, when I was pregnant then, not in 1980, a couple of years later, with our first child, I wanted Chicago pizza so badly. I begged my husband. I said, can I just fly up there and get a pizza, please, and come back? The food here was horrible. It was just Mexican food and whatever, hamburgers. That's all. Or steak, and some of it wasn't very good. I mean, I totally agree with you about the restaurants. It has just blown up. I mean, it has
just in the last 15 years.
Yes. The food when I came here was just so awful. And
in the 80s?
In the 80s.
I'm curious, Dale, from a news perspective, what you covered Dallas for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
What was the perception from the outsiders, other people you met from other cities that might have been in the news?
It was always, to me, the two things. The Dallas, the show itself, like I talked about in the very beginning. But that, for some reason, maybe I run in a strange circle, but that really did, people seem to wean themselves off that to me. I haven't heard somebody mention the show Dallas to me, like I said earlier, in 20 plus years. What I always heard, and probably because of my role in sports, was always the Dallas Cowboys. Right. And you think about the history of this. This is the thing I find funny about Dallas, though, quite honestly, Candy. I think if you ask most people around the country, they'll mention whether it's Tom Landry, Roger Staubach, Jerry Jones, Tony Dorsett, etc. But this is another example of Dallas to me. The Cowboys haven't played in Dallas in 52 years.
Yeah.
But
that's a good point.
There's very few people in Iowa who know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, that's true of a lot of teams around the country. They've all moved to the suburbs. Right. But people always talk to me about the Dallas Cowboys. And then, of course, the JFK, when people come or people talk about it. So where exactly was it? Had these buddies of mine in from Finland.
Okay.
And the two things they just had to see was, one, they wanted to go to the Cowboys Stadium, which probably was the highlight of their trip. And we drove down Elm Street, and I show them the X on the street and the school book depository. And I said, there's a museum here. And this is enough. This is where you act, and that's it. I mean, it's Dallas Cowboys who haven't played in Dallas in more than 50 years. And the assassination of John Kennedy, which was, 63 years ago.
Yeah.
But, I still, that's an absolute true story. People think I made this up. Every time I say it on the banquet circuit, I flew here in 1980 as well. In August, it was at the height of that ridiculous, like 49 days in a row of over 100 degrees.
Hot.
Oh, yeah.
It was the hottest stretch they'd ever had in Texas at that time. And I did. I got out of my interview at Channel 4, KDFW, went to downtown Dallas, and as I said, you could throw a pop bottle off any roof in town. You wouldn't hit anybody.
Oh, I called my husband. I said,
I couldn't
did
believe
something happen? This is like,
there was
it's
nobody
empty.
there.
Yeah.
But I went back to my hotel room, and I called my girlfriend at that time and the woman I've been married to now 43 years. And I said, do you want to move to Dallas? Because I'm going to die here. And she said, you've been there like 4.5 hours. And I swear to you, it in hindsight, and I've thought about this 1,000 times over the years, there was really nothing about it other than I knew the Cowboys, I knew the airport, I knew the golf courses, I knew, the Byron Nelson legacy, Ben Hogan, the two golf tournaments, the SMU was here, TCU was here. The climate was, despite the heat, was an attraction to me. And I just knew. I swear to you, 4.5. When the woman called me that said she had, it was a headhunter in New York City named Shirley Barish, and she died of lung cancer because she smoked like 3 to 4 packs a day, and she really did talk like this. I got you a job. I got you a job interview in Dallas. And I swear to you, I said, because I'm in Omaha. I've been fired in Omaha. And I said to her, Dallas, Texas?
Yeah.
God, how many Dallases do you know, young man? I said, well, that's about it. And I swear to you, I started doing a little bit of research. Man, this looks like exactly what I'm looking for. Warm weather city, which I wanted to get out of the north.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go to like Phoenix or Miami. I wanted, like I say, 3 to 4 days, ice, snow, love it. Major league teams, restaurants, make sure Springsteen comes through here so I don't have to go too far to see him.
Right.
And 4.5 hours in this town, I called my girlfriend, wife-to-be, would you like to die here? Because I'm going to. And here we are 45 years later, and I hope it's not anytime soon, but it's going to happen here. They're not going to have to go far for my service because they will carry me out of Waxahachie in a box.
Well, thank goodness you ended up here so we can solve all these problems.
We solved it all.
Let me put everybody on the spot here. We've been discussing this for an hour before we take off.
Yeah.
After discussing this, what would you say the identity of Dallas is, Candy?
I think it's a melting pot of brilliant people who came here out of a choice. They made a choice, which is almost better than being born someplace. Because if you're born there, you kind of, have to say they're kind of like you may love your family, but you really love your friends because you can choose them. And I think that's one of the things that makes Dallas great. I love that it's a melting pot of careers and, cultures and everything. And I think we're only getting better. I know that the city has grown since I've been here, and I feel like I've grown with it.
Awesome. Great answer. How about you, Lila?
I'm going to stick to it's a city of commerce. And something we haven't talked about is getting a bad rap now since earlier this year for doing the Luca trade. Because that came up. I was in a restaurant in New York eating pizza on a Sunday night, and some guys sat with us because it was like communal seating. And that was the first thing out of their mouth when they said, "Are y'all from here or whatever?" I said, "I'm from Dallas." And they were like, "What is up with the Luca trade?"
Well,
so
we're going to get into this next month. If the Luka trade wasn't the worst trade of all time, the Micah Parsons trade to Green Bay is right behind it.
Yes.
When we talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the NFL on next month's podcast. But I'm going with what you said earlier, Candy, about the comfortability. I'm not even sure if I'm still saying it right. Mm-hmm. But it's just a great place to raise a family, in my opinion. It's a great place to enjoy your life. I think the stress of San Francisco and Los Angeles and your favorite New York City, that's just too much for me. That's too fast, too loud, too much.
Yeah.
And you can find very easy. If you want to live in a mansion in Highland Park, it can be done. Yep. If you want to live in the country on 40 acres, it can be done. Did I mention Springsteen? It can be done.
Something tells me
those
like
restaurants that you talk about.
It's the Rolling Stone.
Everything that I want in my life, I found it
right here
in what I call Dallas, and Dallas includes every great suburb that surrounds that great city.
Absolutely. What about you, Mark?
Well, guys, I think those are all great answers, but I'm going to stick tried and true, and I'm going to go from an outsider's perspective. I still say Dallas is the Dallas Cowboys and the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
So, well, guys, we did a great job. I think we defined Dallas. If we didn't, we gave them some great ideas on how they can market themselves moving forward in the future. Candy, I want to thank you so much for being here. You're always welcome back. You brought a fresh new perspective, and for the first time we've done this, I think it went fabulous because of you. So thank you so much.
I
Dale,
appreciate it.
anything you want to talk about? You mentioned we're going to do the Cowboys next month.
Yeah, I think we'll do the NFL and the Cowboys. And the only problem I may not even do a commentary next month. Like I really like doing them though, so I probably will because you were kind enough to give me that opportunity to get back up on my soapbox. But I've sat down at my computer a couple of times to prepare for next month's episode. And that includes writing a commentary about the Cowboys. And the block that I'm hitting is that I don't know what I can say this year that I haven't said about 20 times over the last 30 years. But knowing me, I'll think
you'll
of something.
come up with something.
But we will talk about it and break it down. But we need to give them a few, because there's still a chance.
Maybe.
So we got to wait about another month to see how it all plays out. And then I do want to just put a bug in your ear that as the lovely Mrs. Hanson, I love, and again, I don't really apologize. That's not exactly the right word, but I don't really like to just browbeat people with my point of view about politics and all the rest of it. But that's the main reason I'm here. And we are going to get into the healthcare situation in America. And I've written another commentary about that I'm absolutely in love with this one. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at it today, and I went, call Candy and tell her she has to wait. I'm doing the healthcare, but the healthcare is probably going to come in March, and the Dallas Cowboys will come in February, and we'll see where that takes.
Well, I can't wait to hear both of those. We love all the controversy, and that's what we brought you on. I've told you that over and over again. If you have any questions or any comments for Dale, because he loves them, the more negative, the better. You can email him to daleh@nwagencies.com. Guys, let's put a wrap on this one. Thank you so much, and I look forward to it next month. You've been listening, watching to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we will see you next month.